the biggest thing, it's kind of difficult with the different educational mandates, especially in the, not even just across the country, but especially in the state of Ohio. So for example, we talk about financial literacy. There is a small portion of financial literacy in Ohio in learning standards for social studies, but it's not really pushed. I know through the years they say they have told, American history teachers and government teachers, we need you to teach this, but it hasn't been really pushed to be uniformity and to have it done with fidelity. There's a small portion in there that, as Katie stated, is not talked about a lot. Now, to think about it with me, what I do is, so for example, I have a set of standards that I have to teach. And so, for example, we talk about communism, I get to talk about capitalism. And I begin to talk about entrepreneurship and things like that. And we start to talk about the free market, ownership. A lot of our students frequent this gas station across the street. And I say, well, that person can own as many gas stations as they want because we live in a capitalistic society. So that's one way. But another thing that I do is I look at the child's behavior financially. What are they buying with their own money? And then I can kind of start the conversation. If I see kids with a lot of candy, chips, a lot of the times, I often stop them in the hallway and say, okay, what you spent for that? Maybe you could have done this. You have to be very creative when you can't just have a whole class as you would like on financial literacy. So I often find different ways in the hallways in the classroom to steer the conversation toward financial literacy and ask different questions and give my own personal experiences. But you have to be very careful because it's difficult because they expect you to teach certain standards to prepare for a test. Another challenge is the history of maybe what the student may or may not have had. Have they been exposed to different spending habits, credit, debit, different things like that? You're challenged with what are they taught at home? And so what I do, I'm very sensitive to that, but I just ask questions and I look at where they are now and I challenge them. And then I try to give them as much education as possible with the very finite time that I do have to teach that portion.